Which block is you guys and which block is the other guys? You guys are block D, so this is you. Okay, so yesterday I introduced you to you guys this tool on Punnett squares is what they're called. And we're going to take a look today at using them. I'm going to continue on with the Harry Potter example. We're going to analyze some more characters within Harry Potter, and then make some deductions about. I'll show you guys how these Punnett squares can be used to make predictions about children, multiple generations on down. So, if you were away, was anyone here? Yes, there was a few away yesterday. Just kind of a crash course to review what we're talking about here. We reviewed how genotypes are given, dominant traits are given the capital letter, recessive traits are given the lowercase letter. Again, you get one of these genes from each parent, or one of these alleles from each parent for a particular gene. And what that allows us to do is it allows us to start to analyze probabilities for kids from two parents if we know the parent's genome. So first example I had here was when we were looking at Freckles. Freckles case 1, we had a homozygous genotype for each parent. Somehow we know this to be true, and what that means is they have to have the homozygous, means they have to have the same letter case. For mom to have freckles and dad to have none, and they're both homozygous, mom's got to be homozygous dominant, so 2 capital F's. Dad's got to be homozygous recessive, 2 lowercase f's. And then when we make the Punnett squares, we put one parent on one side. Dad doesn't have to go on the left. Mom could have gone on the left. It doesn't matter. One parent goes on the left, the other parent goes across the top, and then one allele in each box, and then we start to say, okay, cool. If mom gives this one and dad gives this one, that's going to be the genotype of the kid, and then for each box. So this first case showed us that every kid's going to have freckles, and every kid's going to be heterozygous. And then so the thing that I mentioned, what I mentioned was it could be interesting, is you could have a family where mom has freckles, dad has no freckles, every kid has freckles, and then grandchildren on down don't have freckles. Because if any one of these kids, let's say these are kids that are born into this family, if any one of these kids has kids with someone who is heterozygous or full-on recessive, then they could reintroduce the lack of freckle. We did the same thing here with this case. We said that both parents have freckles, and somehow we know that they're heterozygous, and then we started looking at probabilities. There's a probability relationship between what the genetic information is and how likely or not you are to express a particular phenotype based on what the genes look like. So we're going to do a couple case studies here involving the Weasleys and then the end with Harry. Because someone, I can't remember if it was this class or the other class, someone mentioned Harry and Ginny get together and have kids. Okay. Oh, you mentioned Hermione and Ron. My example is Ginny and Harry. So the other couple. We don't know enough about Hermione's parents to make an educated call on what Hermione's bringing to the table, genetically speaking, with Ron. But we've got enough information about Harry, Harry's parents, Ginny, and Ginny's parents to make an educated guess about Harry and Ginny's kids. And so that's the one that we're going to do. So we are told that all Weasley children have freckles and red hair. That is, Draco mentions that derisively in the first couple chapters of book 1. So what we're going to do is we're going to use Punnett squares to predict the most likely genotypes of their parents, Molly and Arthur Weasley, for those 2 traits specifically. Using the information that I've given to you already, red hair is recessive. So we're going to call that lowercase h, H for hair. And the dominant color is brown, so we're going to go capital H there. Having freckles is dominant, so we're going to go capital F for freckle there. And lowercase f for the recessive no freckle gene. Using this sentence, all Weasley children have freckles and red hair, 100% probability. There's a lot of kids in that family, Statistically, it's very, very likely then that all means all. Bill, George, Percy, Ron, Ginny, twins. It's a lot of kids. Sorry? Charlie and Bill. There's a lot of kids in the family. All of them are red-haired freckled. Every kid's independent of each other, and they could have broken some odds, but at some point, you got to start looking at how likely it is that even that happens. So, possible genotypes for their red hair, recessive, and freckles dominant trait are, the only way they could have that is RR lowercase for red hair, and capital F lowercase f, or big F for freckles. So this is the only possible case for red hair, but for freckles, there's two possible cases. And so we're going to look at all these cases. Flip the page. Let's use Punnett squares for this. For the hair, 100% of the children have red hair. So let's fill the Punnett square. 100% probability of having red hair. The only way for this to happen is if dad over here and mom up here, Arthur and what's her name? Molly, thank you. If Arthur and Molly, the only way for them to have 100% red hair children is if their genotypes are what? Recessive. Little r, and little r. Both parents have to be that. And we know, sorry, move that up so everyone can see a little bit better. And for the freckles, let's put the freckles over here. Freckles is an interesting one because the freckles has the two choices. Either every single one of these boxes is, and don't put them in the middle, put them off to one side, write it the way I'm writing it. Either every box is capital F, or, I'll put a slash through here, every box is capital F, lowercase f. The only way for both of these to occur is if at least one parent has what? One parent needs to be not just dominant, but what kind of dominant? Yes, homozygous dominant. So one parent at least has to be big F, big F. We don't know, we can't say anything about the other parent. The other parent might know one of, let's say Molly has freckles. Arthur could have no freckles. And yet that would still produce a scenario where every kid does. Arthur could be lowercase f. Don't flip back, I will. We did that scenario over here. Arthur could be lowercase f if Molly is dominant, homozygous dominant. You're still going to get a scenario where all kids have freckles. If Arthur has freckles, then he could be heterozygous. Actually, no. If he has freckles, he would have to be fully dominant. So we can start to make some educated assumptions based on how the kids look of what the parents' genotypes are. Either could be full-on recessive, or he could be full-on dominant. Actually, he could have anything. We can't say anything about Arthur. We just know that one of them if one has freckles, they have to be dominant. Okay. So, Ginny is a Weasley. Ginny gets with Harry. So let's talk about Harry. Harry has dark brown hair like his father, but his mom had red hair, we are told in the books. Using the genotypes of lowercase r, Oh, we're going to change it now. I get rid of this. Scribble this out. I don't like R's because that's the recessive trait. And I've said how many times that needs to be the dominant trait. We're going to use H's again. It's going to be lowercase h for red, big H, little h, and big H, big H. Those are the genotypes we're going to use. What possible genotypes does each of the Potters have? The easy one to identify is Lily. If Lily, Harry's mom, had red hair, her genotype has to be what? She has to be little h, little h. James and Harry both had dark brown hair, so they could have the same two possible genotypes. What? To still have brown hair, the two possible genotypes for James and Harry are what? Two big H's or a big H, little h. You betcha. So let's see which of these has to be true. Let's look at both of these scenarios. We're going to put mom up top here again. So Lily, she's going to be little h, little h, little h, little h. And then let's look at the scenarios. Either Harry Potter's dad, James, is big H, or his dad is big H, little h. And now let's run all the genotypes. We could have big H here. Sorry, big H, little h here. We could have big H, little h here. We could have big H, little h here. We could have big H, little h here. Over here, we could have big H, little h, big H, little h, little h, little h, and little h, little h. So these are all of the possible genotypes that could exist given the fact that we don't know whether James is homozygous dominant or heterozygous. But if you look, there is an interesting little tidbit of information that we can pull out here. What's interesting about what these genotypes are revealing? Does anyone see anything interesting? Yes, Evelyn. There's only two that have red hair. These two are definitely red. All of the other ones then have to be brown. And what's interesting about them? They're all heterozygous. Yeah. So we can do better than saying Harry Potter, dark brown hair, has to be homozygous dominant or heterozygous. If we look at James and Lily, we can see that Harry Potter has to have what genotype? If Harry's got brown hair, the only way Harry's getting brown hair is through any one of these pathways, and they're all the same. Harry Potter's genotype has to be heterozygous. He cannot have big H, big H. And so now we can start to make predictions about his kids with Lily. Lily, no, that's his mom. She's dead. That's so wrong on so many levels. Ginny. Harry marries Ginny, who has red hair. What are the possible genotypes of their children's hair? Let's take a look at this. What are the phenotypes and genotypes of Harry and Ginny? Harry's got dark hair, and we know he has to be heterozygous. Ginny's got red hair. Red hair is a recessive trait. She can only be recessive. Little h, little h. So we can know with absolute certainty what the genotypes of those two parents are. So let's take a look. Let's put Harry over here and Ginny over here. Harry has to be big H, little h. Ginny has to be little h, little h. So let's make the boxes. We're going to get a big H, little h. Top left, top right, we're going to get big H, little h. Bottom left, we're going to get little h, and bottom right, we're going to get little h, little h. So what are the possible genotypes and phenotypes of the children's hair colors? 50-50 red-brown. You betcha. 50% big H, little h brown, and 50% little h red. And if we read the epilogue of book number 7, we get a description of Harry and Ginny's kids with horrible, horrible names. Well, that one kid has got a horrible name. Can you imagine naming your kid Albus Severus Potter? Oh, that's a bad name. And Ginny really didn't get to name any of her kids, because they have a boy named James Sirius Potter, a boy named Albus Severus Potter, and a girl named Lily Luna Potter. And Lily Luna had red hair. Where was it? Oh, I totally lost it. I had it, now it's gone. There it is. Oh, that's okay. So, using a fictional family, we've nailed down, actually, I think a fairly decent example of how to genetically analyze based on just what we see, phenotype. And again, big asterisks here next to what we've done. What we've done is only valid for traits that we know are monohybrid crosses. Traits that are controlled by a singular gene that can go one way or the other. Freckles are an example of this. There are a few others that are examples of this that are kind of gross. I will read them to you. Hold on, I gotta pull my document back up here. I got rid of it because I wasn't gonna tell you, but I will tell you now. Okay. So, hands up if you sneeze when you see sunlight after having been in a dark room. That's a reflex you have, okay? That is a dominant trait. We know that that is a singular genetic trait. It is a single gene that either you have it or you don't. That is a dominant trait. I'm not going to ask you to volunteer information on this one because it's kind of gross. Your earwax. I didn't realize this. People can have different kinds of earwax. You can have wet earwax that is brown and sticky. This is a dominant trait. You can have dry earwax that is flaky and grayish brown. If that is you, that is a recessive trait. And then there's something called advanced sleep phase syndrome. People go to bed and wake up unusually early. This is a dominant trait if you have it. If that is not you, that's a recessive trait. So there's all sorts of things that are like this. Not every trait in humanity is like this. Nobody in your family has freckles. And you're sure you have freckles? Interesting. I don't know what to tell you about that. We know that freckles are, so again, we don't want to overgeneralize this. Freckles genes. There's more than one gene that impacts this. So freckles are genetically influenced by the MC1R gene and other genes involved in pigmentation. Are your parents do they have the same skin color you do? They're as dark as you are? It's possible that they have freckles that you just can't notice because your skin is the shade that it is. Like my freckles are really faint until if I get like blasted by the sun over a large period of time, then they will darken up. So it's possible that, and with the darker your skin, the harder it can be to see some of those things. Like even like moles and skin cancer, are harder to tell the darker your skin is, but they can still be present. So I don't know what to say about that. I know there's a few genes that impact it, one being the MC1R gene, and then there's other genes involved in pigmentation. So you can have freckles, but they could be closely pigmented to your skin color. Who knows, maybe one of your parents actually does, and you just can't tell. Okay, so I'm going to give you some practice problems using these Punnett squares. Starting here with flower color, I want you guys to go all the way to, there's a page here with a cow on it. That's where the next notes start. I want you to take it, you got about 35 minutes, so a lot of time. I want you guys to take it all the way to the bottom of this here, page 21. This is where I want you to end. There you go. On your mark, get set, giver. It's not that long. You can do it, I believe in you. Use this time all, it's not gonna be an issue.